Good Friday morning. The doctors this week, Dr. Todd Bell joins me. We're talking about some bacteria that lives in your colon. You have some interesting stuff.
Well, yeah, so this is something that it's really kind of new and cutting edge material and information in the literature. What we're seeing though, and this has been first explored back in the mid-2000s, like 2005, 2006, they started to see that there's certain bacteria that live in the colon in people who struggle with obesity that don't necessarily live in the colon of people who don't struggle with obesity. And so there's this potential link then between the types of bacteria that live in the gut and whether someone is going to be obese or whether they're going to become obese. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions, but we've seen that in other types of illnesses or disease, you think about Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, which are both diseases of the gut, that we've known for some time that there's this complex interaction between the patient's genetics and the type of things that live in the gut and the disease process, how the body responds to that. There's something with the immune system, and it's still being teased out. But there's been several articles recently that have looked and have sort of affirmed this association between what lives in someone's colon and whether or not they are obese or are going to become obese.
Is this something that you would get tested for or that a doctor would ever find out?
Well, I think it's still really, really early in figuring this out as to how to use it clinically. I think there's a lot of potential therapeutic applications where if we knew for certain that a type of bacteria would decrease the risk of someone becoming obese or getting diabetes, that we could potentially use a probiotic, which are just healthy bacteria, in order to try to prevent those things. The problem right now, though, is that it's not real clear exactly which bacteria are beneficial and which bacteria are not. There's a lot of probiotics that are already on the market, but we don't know for certain which, if any of those, would actually be able to affect something as complex and multifactorial as what obesity is.
And speaking of probiotics, as far as someone using them, this is something that could be beneficial?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say at this point with obesity. Okay. There definitely is a role for probiotics. We see that there's some evidence that it may be helpful in patients who've had diarrhea associated with antibiotic use, or even preventing diarrhea associated with antibiotic use. There's actually some really good data on in refugee camps around the world and viral gastroenteritis, so basically viral diarrheal illnesses, and the ability of probiotics to help repopulate the gut of children who have had a viral illness like that. Still way too early to know whether probiotics would have any benefit in obesity.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bell.